Well, welcome to the first meeting of the new Heritage and Townscape Committee, and I'm very pleased to see a substantial number of the public here. I just want to make a few introductory remarks. This, as you probably know, there have been no committee meetings of any kind since I think early March. During the summer, the council restructured the committees so that we now have three committees: the Planning Committee, the Heritage and Townscape Committee, and the Finance and General Purposes Committee. And the terms of reference for this committee are attached to this agenda. Now, I envisage this committee as, in a sense, rather more visionary than the previous committees. I feel, welcome Councillor Heather. I feel that in the past, much of the committee work was reactionary, reacting to particular issues that people raised. And I feel that this committee should be more proactive rather than reactive, and that we should use our imagination and also feel free to raise any issue which falls within our terms of reference, and that we should feel free to discuss those issues in the meeting quite openly and fully. There may be times when we identify an issue that we think should be discussed by the whole council, and in that case I think we should recommend that that be the case about a particular issue, because we think that it's so important that every councillor should have a chance to talk about it fully. And it may also be the case that we occasionally think that an issue needs to be looked at very intensively, but in the short term. So there's a particular issue which we need more information about, or we need to look at the costs and benefits of developing a new policy. And in those particular cases, I think we should consider setting up a working group, and we now have a new system of working groups with fully developed terms of reference which have been accepted by the council and are in place. So those are really just my introductory remarks, and that's the end of item 1. So item 2, please.
We've received apologies from Councillor Sampson, Marie and Friend.
Thank you. Item 3 is the declaration of disclosable pecuniary interests and other significant interests. There I am. Item 4 is the public right to speak.
No.
There have been none. Item 5 are the terms of reference of this committee. And I'm hoping that the members of the public have also been able to look at these, so you can see the kinds of issues that are covered. These terms of reference are, we have just passed them, but they will be subject to review in January. So there may be little glitches about them. For example, the terms of reference say that we include the museum in our considerations, and I'm hoping that that will continue to be the case, but there is some advice that we can't actually include the museum, which I find rather surprising. But those are the kinds of things that we need to review in January. I don't know if any councillors have anything to say about the terms of reference in addition to what I've just said. Yes, Colin.
At the moment there are no co-optees on this committee, but as the Chair said, we will be reviewing the terms of reference in January, and at that point it might be the case that we ask for co-optees where we can build on expertise from a wider pool, if you like.
Yes. I mean, the issue that I see about co-optees, who I think are very useful on committees, is whether they should be co-opted because they represent a sandwich organisation, or whether they have particular expertise which falls with which covers issues that are covered in the terms of reference. And I would like a discussion about the principles on which we co-opt people at some point, probably after the review in January. So that's something for the future. And I should add that if people want to be co-opted, they should get in touch with me and talk to me about it. Item 6. Sorry, we missed one.
Yes, on the subject of reviews in January, I reread the subject matter, and that it strikes me that something along the lines of preserving and enhancing the environment, the natural environment of Sandwich should be included when we review the terms of reference.
Yes, we do have a reference to the environment at some point in them.
Yeah.
But again, if you feel that you would like to have a stronger statement,
Yeah.
let me know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just, can someone propose to receive a note in terms of reference?
Okay. Could somebody, I've asked the Chief Executive if she would give her advice so that everybody can hear it.
Sorry.
So perhaps you could repeat that.
We need to, could somebody propose and somebody second to receive a note to the terms of reference, please?
I second.
Okay.
You could give that to me, please.
In favour?
Oh,
No comment. Okay. Item 6 is Sandwich Waterways, to receive and consider a report from the Chief Executive offering an update from DDC in relation to Sandwich Waterways, and that's attachment 2. I put this on the agenda because it seems to me that the Sandwich Waterways are a very important part of Sandwich Townscape, and I know there are a number of people, and I include myself, who are very concerned about the state of Sandwich Waterways, and also think that if they were beautiful, clear of duckweed, full of wildlife, they would be a strong enhancement to the town and, you know, a tourist attraction, that we could advertise Sandwich as a place on water, which in many respects it is. We have a big river, which hopefully will develop a heritage harbour, and we have these wonderful waterways with a very interesting history. So it seemed to me that I felt that I needed to know what was happening, which is why I asked the Chief Executive to develop a report about them, and they are attachment 2. Does anybody have any comments about this report? Because I have.
Well, unfortunately, it's not in our remit, is it? It's Dover District Environment Agency, Internal Trade. We've been pressing for years to get these works done, and we got hitting our head against a brick wall. I've been saying about the moat, which is the road walk, that need that weir put in back under Woodisborough Road. Don't they listen? No, they don't. That water should be 2 foot higher than the butt, because it's only rainwater that comes off the cow's leaves. So any little rain that used to come, I mean, I gave the CEO photographs of what it used to look at, didn't I? And it was about a foot below the level of the bank on cow's leaves, but they just don't listen.
Yes, well, I mean, clearly something's being done, because in this report there is this part of it is about what the Delft Stream Working Group has been doing. It says this working group was set up in 2017 to try to increase the flow and create a comprehensive programme to restore the Delft to its former glory, recognising its historical significance and initiatives to promote tourism. And then there's a whole list of work that has been done.
On the Delft, yeah, that's completely different, isn't it?
So you're distinguishing
So
between
there's a difference between, there's a difference between the town moat and the old drinking water, the Delft. They're two different
Yes,
waterways.
I accept that, but I think when I had in mind Sandwich waterways, I was thinking of all the water, apart from the Gaze and Salts pond or lake or whatever. So I would include the Delft Stream and the rope walk and the bus. Colin?
I mean, the rope walk, during lockdown, I walked the whole length of it, the Delft Stream rather. I walked the whole length all the way to its source near Worth. And what happens at Roaring Gutter, which is a big pumping station, the North Stream is here and the Delft Stream is here, and water is being pumped into the North Stream but nothing into the Delft Stream. So this suggestion here about no flow, that's where the flow comes from. I mean, if there is potential for flow, it should be going in at Roaring Gutter, but that presupposes that there's somewhere for it to go to, presumably at Brewery Sluice, where it comes out
Where is
into the
Brewery
river
Sluice?
by
The entrance to
Gaze and Car Park.
Right.
So there's no flow in. The Delft Stream is a stagnant ditch,
Yes.
effectively. But I suppose my question on this, I'm not quite clear, perhaps Councillor Franklin knows, does the rope walk stream from the pavilion and the Guestling, does it flow towards New Street or does it flow away from New Street?
Flows away from New Street.
Away
from New
Flows,
Street.
flows in the butts, as I say, if ever we're under Bridgesborough Road, if they replace that,
Okay.
any little rainfall would take all that green duckweed off.
So there is the potential, if the Delft Stream was flowing, for the rope walk to become a flowing stream with lily pads and cows on cows,
Yeah.
meadows, water gardens, fantastic. But
Yeah.
where's the obstruction?
Yes, well, I've talked to a number of people about this and had all sorts of information fed to me, much of it contradictory. Councillor Gray.
Well, I was going to say, just as you said, it's really hard to get to the bottom of why nothing has happened since 2017 or whenever this working group was set up. The other thing I find strange is that the people who seem to be responsible to a large extent are the internal drainage board, whereas I've never understood why Sandwich has had no representation on the internal drainage board, because we really are part of the whole drainage system, flow through the town. But we get, I mean, I know that there are two Dover District Council representatives on the internal drainage board, but I don't know who they are, and I don't think they have anything to do with Sandwich. And I would think that we ought to have representation on that body. And then we really can hopefully find out a bit of what's happening, because they are ultimately the people who are responsible for it, along with the Environment Agency.
Yeah. Councillor Henry.
Yes, by coincidence, a few days ago, I was on the rope walk discussing improvements to the flower beds, which are Dover District Council's responsibility, which unfortunately they don't appear to take. So a group of people are getting together to improve the appearance of the flower beds along there. But one of the people there made the point, it's all very well us improving and planting nice flowers along there, if when you turn round and you look at the water, it smells bad, there are dead fish in it, and it's covered in blanket weed. So if we do attempt to improve the appearance, say, of the rope walk and the flower beds, then we have to consider the water. And I would agree that we've been told so many things over the years and given to believe it was all going to improve, but it doesn't seem to change, and we need an upgrade to the work, or at least we need to find out what's planned, what is being done, what's being planned to be done, and why. Because we need a solution, which I assume is an improved flow. And if you get an improved flow, then for one thing, the mosquito larvae don't survive if there's a steady flow. They only thrive in stagnant water.
Yes.
I think one of the main problems over the last 30 years with the Delph is they put a new pumping station in Loop Street. And when they commission the pumping station, if you get a severe storm or flood, it pumps into the Delph. And we did have a case of sewage going into the Delph flowing back up through the town. So I think that sluice on Loop Street, I think, is more or less permanently closed. Whereas if they installed a weir there, I know we did that one in Delph Street and we cut the bottom off that, but if we modified the sluice in Loop Street by the pumping station, so it'd be higher than the other water, so that if ever it did cut in that pumping station, it wouldn't get a backflow through the town. So I think it may probably want some looking at the sluice in Loop Street by the bungalow.
I mean, I've also been told by somebody who was on the Delph Street working group that some sort of weir or something mechanical was put in by the Environment Agency during the flood defence work at Gaze and Salts, and it's never worked. There's some problem about it.
Yes, I've heard that as well. And they did a lot of work there.
Yes.
They renewed the whole mechanism there. And I've been told it's actually never worked properly ever since.
Right.
Yeah, they had divers there one time, didn't they?
Hmm?
They had divers there cleaning it all
Yeah,
out.
that's right. I keep on seeing divers going down there working.
On the subject of work being done and what is proposed and what isn't proposed, one issue that came up quite recently was, and it relates to the flow along the rope walk. When you get to the New Street end, that's the particularly bad end in terms of dead stuff, litter and accumulated litter. Now I understand that there's supposed to be a pipe under New Street and you can see it emerge over the Delph on the other side, and it crosses the Delph heading towards the Stour along the old moat. And there's even the suggestion that it should be cut at that point to allow it to flow into the Delph, with the hope that that will get a flow going.
It'd be the rope walk out then, though, wouldn't it?
So,
You would have no water at all in the rope walk.
well,
The Delph's about 6 foot lower than the
yes,
rope
that
walk.
is a point.
What I think this is a very important issue, and I mentioned, and people in the town feel extremely strongly about it, and quite apart from being bitten to death, which I'm sure is part of the problem, or related to the problem. What I think this committee should do is refer it up to the whole council for a discussion at council level, and that we should recommend to the council that they set up a working group which can really look at this, what is going on very intensively. If that working group needs to invite witnesses, local experts, I mean, there are people around who have given a lot of thought. I mean, Councillor Franklin is one of them, and who have ideas about what the source of the problem is and how it could be ameliorated. And I would think that working group should also look at funding, because I do recognise that whatever recommendations that working group might make, there would be costs involved. And I did very quickly, I googled, I can't remember exactly what I put in, but something like grants for waterways, and very quickly came to the Heritage Lottery Fund. It doesn't specifically talk about waterways, but it talks about parks and green areas. And there are grants around, and I think that's another thing that such a working group should consider. Because as we know, local authority funding is getting very low, and actually the Heritage Lottery Fund mentions the fact that local authorities are having great difficulty now in raising money to protect their parks and their heritage sites. So that might be something which the working group should consider. And there are probably other grant-giving bodies which are specific to Kent or the South East region or whatever. So would that be acceptable? That we refer it up to the council to discuss?
Because when you think of it, Sandwich is the only walled town in Kent, isn't it? And that is our moat, so it's got a lot of heritage importance.
That's
And
right.
the water level is maintained there, isn't it? So children, years to come, will know that is the moat and that's our town wall.
Exactly. So, Councillor
And
Wilde.
I think, regardless of what Councillor Franklin said earlier, that it's not our responsibility, I think we have a duty to look at this because it affects the immediacy of the town. It's not down to us, but surely it's our job to knock heads together or complain or write letters or
Yes.
seek representation, whatever it might be,
Yes.
to try and sort this problem out, because people in the town are really upset about this. The smell,
Yes.
the look of the thing, and it could be such a great amenity for the town. I mean, just a slightly facetious suggestion, but I lived in Cambridge for 30 years, and the fens were drained by Dutch engineers back in the 17th century. The Dutch are the best in the world at water management, so maybe we could bring in the Dutch engineers to investigate the whole problem.
Yes.
No, I would definitely, I would propose that suggestion.
That we send this upstairs, as it were,
Upstairs.
and that we also recommend that the council consider setting up a working group. Working groups, I should explain, are short life, intensive, they have a maximum life of 6 months, and they can look at intensively at a particular issue and can have co-optees, and also, although we didn't actually mention it in the terms of reference of working groups, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't take witness statements or interview particular individuals about what they think has gone wrong and what can be put right.
And I'd also like to suggest that the chief executive should write to the internal drainage board, asking if Sandwich can have a representative on their board.
Okay,
So that way, we will then be able to find out much more of what they are doing.
yes, I agree. So perhaps we've got two motions. The first is to take it to the council, the issue. Is that proposed and
Can I
seconded?
just make a suggestion?
Yes.
Rather than only writing to the IDB, we write to the EA as well, because otherwise we'll be bounced between the two.
Right. Okay, but that's the second motion. So let's first of all look at the proposal to send it upstairs, as it were, and for the whole council to consider this issue, and that we should also recommend that the council set up a working group to look at this, and the council will decide who should chair that working group and who the members should be. Is that okay? Anybody?
Proposal, I need to second it, please.
Yes, I'll propose that.
I'll second it then.
Okay. And we vote. So that's passed. Then Colin.
So will this be on the agenda next month? Oh,
Yeah. And the second proposal is that the chief executive.
No, forgive me for interrupting, no it won't be, because your minutes need to be approved, so it'll be November.
oh. Can we not approve the minutes and put it through on the same month? It seems silly to wait so long.
There's a problem about minutes. I think you and I need to talk about that, because it would be, I mean, it's at the top of everybody's head that we need to get something going.
Yes.
So I think we need to find some way through so that it can go on the next
Yeah.
council.
There must be a way of
Agenda.
doing that.
Yeah, I mean, other committees do that, don't they?
Mhm.
The old committees used to do that, didn't they? They'd have
Yes.
a committee meeting and then went to the next council meeting.
Yes.
There must be a way.
Anyway,
of
we'll
achieving
talk,
that, yeah.
I think that's how we should leave it, but you and I will talk about that. And the second proposal is that the chief executive write to the internal drainage board and the environment agency about a representative from Sandwich being on both bodies. Is that what we're saying?
From Sandwich or from Sandwich Town Council?
Well, that's an interesting question.
Because it should be someone that knows what they're talking about, shouldn't it? Not just someone. Does anyone on the council know? It used to be Councillor Brett, didn't it? But
Yes. But sadly he's not with us anymore.
no, but maybe Jeff or
Yes.
someone completely different. I don't know.
I think Councillor Graham initially said just the internal drainage board, didn't it?
Yes.
Not the environment agency, but isn't it?
Yes, I think asking for representation is not the same as them getting, those two organisations getting their wires crossed and passing the buck. So I think you're right, that we should, we have a proposal that we ask the internal drainage board for a Sandwich representative. And
If they say yes, we can decide, can't we?
yes, then once they've come back to us, we can decide whether it should be a councillor or some local expert.
Agreed.
Okay, so who's proposing that?
I would vote that as well.
And I second it.
Okay, and shall we vote? Okay, then
Do we need to now vote to note the information, or do we just leave that now?
well, I think we've made a recommendation, haven't we?
Yeah.
So that's,
Yes.
Okay.
okay. Item 7 is empty buildings. And to receive and consider a report from the Chief Executive offering an update from KKC and BDC regarding empty properties within the town. And if we could go through the empty properties that have been identified in attachment 3, and just consider each one by one. So the first is wayfarers.
Could I ask a question about wayfarers
Yes?
to the Chief Executive Office? It says KCC have advised that the legal process towards the sale is progressing and that further information regarding the successful bidder will be available relatively quickly. What does that mean? It's not even been sold. To me, it's just passing. I think they're saying something that might not be.
I think the question is about what you mean by relatively quickly.
Well, the whole sentence is contrived. It's not. If I looked before I came, I looked on Christie's. It's still up for sale.
Right. Thank you for that information.
Thank
you. Councillor Heaven.
Yeah, just to add, is the implication there is a successful bidder, or it does mean that we're waiting for a successful
Yeah.
bidder?
Can you enlighten
No.
us?
It doesn't make sense.
That's exactly what I received.
The legal
and that's all
process
I
towards the
received.
sale needs absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't make, you're right, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
Either they've got a buyer and they're negotiating, or they don't have a buyer.
I don't think they have a buyer because it has to be a care home or something like that.
Right.
So it's,
Yes.
Wayfarers it's marketed as having development potential.
Not
But we were told back in February it was under offer when it was proposed as a possible building for Ukrainian refugees. It's still under offer 9 months later. I mean,
Can I just
KCC, what's going on?
basically, it says development for potential, but when you go into the website, it says that it should be a care home facility or something for care, because I believe that there's a covenant, very, very old, lost covenant, but that it has to be, because it was the grassland, it has to be used for something like that.
And is there anything that the committee wishes to do about this? I mean, it's difficult to think of what.
It would be good if it reopened. I don't know how we could do that, but
Beyond our remit, I think. Chairman.
Yes.
Could we ask our KCC councillor to report back to the next meeting?
yes, but she is the one that
I think that's a good idea, actually. I think we should ask for more information, because we have the additional information from Councillor Sidrick Hire that it's still being marketed, and apparently being marketed as only available for the development of a care home.
Last time I looked inside it was, yeah, there is a covenant. I didn't find it, but I think you have to have a lot of money. But there is a covenant on it, on Awesome Parts land, so.
Right. I think it would be useful if you could take a screenshot of
And send it to them.
and send it to all the councillors on this committee. That would be useful, and the chief executive. And we will ask Councillor Chandler to report at the next council meeting about what is happening about Wayfair.
It's better with this meeting because we're not allowed to ask her questions in the
Oh,
council
that's true.
meeting.
Okay, so we will invite Councillor Chandler to come to the next meeting of this committee.
You could put on a report, couldn't you?
Well, Councillor Friend actually has a slot to report, but it is a KCC matter because it's KCC that does that.
No, I mean, when Councillor Chandler comes as a KCC representative to the full council, she could put a report about Wayfair's on her.
She could do.
She could do, but look what she said last time. I think we should ask her properly, and she should be accountable.
Okay, well, the proposal is that we invite her to this committee to talk about what's happening with that site. Is anybody happy to propose that?
I'll propose it.
Okay. Anybody second it? It's proposed by Councillor Civica and seconded by Councillor Heaven. Shall we vote on it? Then on. The Limes is the next one. We all know the Limes. 57 New Street. DDC have advised there is a planning enforcement case open on this property. Councillor Friend is the designated single point of contact on this issue, and there are no further updates that DDC are able to share with STC.
I mean, this is just so bland. It's been going on for what, 20 years? The guy who owns it, or his agent, has been cutting down the odd branch and the odd tree, but from what I can see, there's no substantial work being carried out at that property.
Got a big hole in the roof now, isn't it? Massive big hole in the roof. They just want it to fall down.
I don't think it's extraordinary that it's been allowed to go on as long as it has, with no action taken by DDC. But what we can do, I don't know.
No. I think it's the nicest house in Sandwich.
Hmm?
It was the nicest private house in Sandwich.
Yeah.
And just over the last 30 years, it's let it deteriorate.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's an eyesore when people come
Yeah.
by train into the town, they walk in. Okay, well, we just have to note that, and it's a story that continues. I don't think there's anything that we can do about it. The Admiral Owen, and the note says this is a privately owned building that had planning permission granted on the 21st of December 2021, and the work has to begin within 5 years. I mean, it's very regrettable that a beautiful building like Edinburgh, in such a prominent position, is visibly deteriorating. And I don't know whether anybody has any additional information about when this month. Yes,
I actually spoke to him about a fortnight ago,
spoke to
Malcolm White.
who owns the building.
That's right. And I said, well, he said he's got some other things on at the moment. He said he hopes to start on it very soon.
Well, what has planning permission been granted for? As a private residence?
No, as a restaurant.
As a restaurant.
Pub restaurant.
As a restaurant. There's no work was started on it this
Yeah,
year.
at the present time. They're keeping busy on the waiting room, isn't
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't think there's anything more that we can do apart from airing it as an issue, and one that worries a lot of people, because it is a very important building. 25 to 27 Strand Street, I asked about this specifically because I walk past it very often, and the work seemed to have stopped on it, but it's restarted. This is a privately owned building that had planning permission granted for number 25 on the 8th of September 2021, and the work has begun. I mean, it seems to be satisfactorily proceeding. Has anybody got any?
Got new windows in, I think, doesn't it?
Yes, it's looking very
There's
strong.
two
It's beginning
properties.
to really
It's looking very
look
good at the moment.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's very encouraging.
Mm.
Schoolhouse. This is a privately owned property with no information from district or county council. Now, I think it is possible that there are two houses called Schoolhouse in, is it School Lane?
Fair enough.
Councillor Wiles, if you would like to.
Yeah, Schoolhouse, there is on the corner as you dogleg round, there's a private house called Schoolhouse which is occupied. This schoolhouse, I presume, is the one attached to the infant school, which was previously a nursery, and it's been empty for at least 4 years now.
Yes.
It's owned by KCC. I've been dealing with Councillor Chandler and an officer at DDC to say, look, the school are desperate for extra accommodation because they have many more one-to-one kids because of COVID partly, but numbers have increased. They're desperate for space, and Schoolhouse is the natural place for them to expand into because it's connected to the school. It has an internal connecting door. I mean, it makes no sense to sell it privately when the school is in such desperate need. So I've asked Councillor Chandler if, because I've been speaking to the head teacher as well, he's very keen for them to come and visit the school to see what their needs are. So that's where that is at the moment.
Yes.
Right. So would it be helpful if this committee had a proposal, which it passed, to support your talking to Councillor Chandler, or would you prefer it if we asked Councillor Chandler to talk to us about
I think if
that schoolhouse?
if we're inviting her to come about the wayfarers, then talk about this at the same time.
Yes,
Makes sense.
yes.
She doesn't. I haven't had any response so far. I think she raised it with the portfolio holder, but nothing has come back.
Right. So,
It used to be, it used to be the headmaster's house.
well, I think that's the house opposite.
No, he lived there, Mr. Sage.
He lived next door to
To
the
the
school.
school, yeah. That's where they've got the door that goes through.
Yeah,
And I walked past it the other day, it looked like someone's been tidying the garden up. So someone's been in there.
Right. Well, perhaps the best thing to do now is to go back to our resolution where we asked Councillor Chandler to come and talk to us about wayfarers and amend it.
Just make this a separate resolution.
We could make it a separate resolution. Okay. So the proposal is that we ask Councillor Chandler to come and update us about the house next to the school. Sorry, I've got a tickle. Which is known as Schoolhouse, I think.
It is, yeah. That's what the it
And
used to be
it's owned
Schoolhouse
by-
Nursery, didn't it?
And is owned by KCC. That we ask her to come and talk to us about that building as well.
Is it for sale?
Yes.
It was.
Oh, okay. I don't want to buy it. I just wondered why they, KCC used to be in charge of education. You would think if someone asked for it to use it, they would offer it up.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know if it's complicated by the fact that the school is part of an academy trust.
Right.
Yeah.
It's part of the Achillea Trust, which comes under the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Right.
Whether that complicates things in terms of public, private, etc., I don't know.
It might do, but
but
maybe
that's
not give
fine.
it and just ask, let them use it.
Yes, I mean that's
KCC
precisely the kind of question
KCC
that Councillor
are
Chandler should be
responsible
able
for
to answer.
education. So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so the proposal is that we invite, or we ask Councillor Chandler to come and talk to us about schoolhouse, in other words, the house next door to the school, which we understand is owned by KCC. Anybody happy to propose that?
No, very well.
Proposed by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Wiles. Will you vote on it? NEMCON. Thank you.
Could I make a general point? I think this list is good, but it's not exhaustive.
No.
There are other empty properties in the town. And I think in terms of certainly the lines, I think one of the things we've discussed before is inviting DDC planning enforcement officer or the planning director either to this meeting or to a meeting of the council to explain how they operate, because again there is dissatisfaction within the town about the way planning enforcement works.
Yes.
So it would be useful for someone to come and talk to the council about that.
I think my view would be that that's appropriate for the council, the full council. Though obviously members of this committee will have comments to make. So, do we have a proposal that we invite
That's my proposal.
the planning enforcement officer to come to the council within the next 2 months?
Or we recommend to the council that they invite.
Yes, okay, we recommend to the council that we, the committee, this committee, recommend to the council that they invite the planning enforcement officer or a planning
Or a
enforcement
planning director.
director of planning to come to the council to talk about enforcement. Have we got a proposer? We have Councillor Wiles, we've got a
A
seconder.
second.
Shall we vote on that? Okay, NEMCON. And if there are additional empty dwellings or buildings that you would like us to look at, Councillor Wiles, perhaps you could let me know which ones you want, and anybody else. Okay. Item 8, tourist information. To receive and consider information regarding the Council's Visitor Information Service and to include feedback relating to the new Visitor Information Assistance, Visitor Contact and Reception opening hours. And this information is in attachment 4, where there's a great deal of information provided for us, but there are some gaps. But perhaps before I come to the gaps that I've identified, other councillors, would you like to raise some questions about this? Councillor Sophie Curran.
I don't think this is mentioned here, but I would like to see the Visitor Information Centre back where it used to be. I think people don't know where it is round the corner, and it needs to go back where it was.
Yes. I mean, I do recognise that there's a lot of feeling in the town from both residents and businesses that the current number is not adequate. So that is a point which I think we should consider. But perhaps we could leave that. What I would like at the moment is any particular comments and questions about this report, and then we'll come to what we can do.
And well, the other thing really follows on from that is that the opening hours of the Visitor Information Centre are appalling. I mean, it's hardly ever open. It's only open in the morning, it was Monday to Thursday. Well, I mean, that is just not, that's not good enough for a town trying to encourage tourists with a visitor information centre. I know it follows on from what Councillor Silver-Carr said, but I mean, I feel very strongly about that.
Yes. And the data that we have, it's closed at the weekends because of course Guildhall is closed at the weekends, and the data that we have indicates that there is a very considerable drop-off in visitor numbers at the weekend. Visitor numbers that are noted anyway, or people who've asked for information. we've been given some comparative data with other towns, in particular Broadstairs, Deal, Dover, Folkestone and Hythe, Margate and Ramsgate. And I had a look at a number of these and I was rather surprised because some of them are actually open at the weekends, but it's not indicated here. I think Councillor Wiles, you had done the same thing as I did.
Yeah, I checked this because, I mean, certainly Broadstairs, my sister works in the kiosk there, it's open 7 days a week, May till October, and then odd weekends during the rest of the year. Deal is correct, but Dover's 7 days a week. Folkestone is 5 days a week. I looked also at places like Rye, which we've talked about before, 7 days a week. Dover is 7 days a week. So I think other towns are offering a much more extensive tourist information offer. And I think for Sandwich there needs to be a relationship between tourism and businesses and local history, and having all three working together.
Yeah.
Because the more all the businesses are reporting a downturn in footfall, so we have to try and encourage more people to come to the town. And I've seen lots of tourists come into the town in coaches, they wander around, they don't know where they're going or what they're looking at. If we were to be more proactive with those coach companies and bring them into the Guildhall, the museum, the courtroom, guide them towards pub lunches or, you know, cream teas or fish and chips, maybe into other shops, it would have a much more beneficial impact on the town's businesses more generally. So I think we're missing a big trick in terms of the tourist euro or the tourist pound, if you like. We could be making this place much more attractive to them.
Yeah.
So that's.
I mean, the visitor information assistants, which are mentioned here, perhaps the chief executive could tell us what hours they work, when do they work, and are they seasonal, for example? Are they working? There are two of them, is that right?
There are two of them, and they work, as per the report, Fridays, Saturday and Sundays 10 till 4.
Right.
They begin the week, well they will begin the week before Easter and finish at the end of September.
Right. And how many people do they talk to per day? Do you know any?
The statistics are within the report. So the weekend numbers that they're engaging with are within the report.
So how does, because I don't understand this chart actually. So the weekend 2022 visitors are that yellow line.
So if you look at the numbers underneath,
Yes.
June, the weekend staff interacted with 280 visitors.
Right. That wasn't queries, that was visitors.
That was visitors that they interacted with, that they either offered assistance to, or they were asked where was something, or could they have a map, or July 395, August 653.
September 17th.
So those are daily figures for the weekdays. Is that per day or per week?
That's for the month.
For the month.
That's for the month. Okay.
Yes.
So
So-
400, July 22, for example.
Yeah.
496 people. That was over the course of the month. So that's what,
That was
15 a day.
weekday. Yes.
I mean, numbers are, that's why I purposely gave 2019 as well, because we can't really compare 21 and 20. The only one we can compare is to 2019, and the numbers are just
Yeah.
Yeah.
We used to have the, in the foyer, that was getting 7 days a week, didn't it? We used to have that chap who used to come at the weekends.
Yes, we did.
Wouldn't it be better if we put them inside the building?
Can you explain that, Councillor Franklin? When you say the foyer, what do you mean?
In the main, where the visitor information centre is at the moment,
Yes.
that was manned 7 days a week. We had a man come in at weekends.
Right.
So would be better if we based these there 7 days a week, actually, in the building.
I mean, there are two schools of thought, aren't there, that I mean, the Guildhall, if it were open, would be an appropriate place to have a visitor information centre, but it's open very, it's not open over the weekends. Or alternatively, that the the location should be the old what I think of as the old tourist information centre, which is immediately below, and would lead into the courtroom, which is of course one of the jewels in the crown of the Sandwich
I personally
offer.
Personally, I think we'd be better off if they was in there 8 and 10 days a week.
Where is
They
it
will-
now?
Yeah.
Plus open.
Oh, then perhaps later. We can't at the moment because we've got contracts with other people at the moment, haven't we? And then bring it into the front.
Could I just ask when the contract ends on that building? It must be soon.
Which building?
Not building, sorry, on the old visitor information.
Contract for what, I'm sorry?
Well, I was told, I don't know, that the visitor information, that the police have a contract for the visitor information. Is that true?
The town PCSO and the town warden are currently utilising what council and the Tollbridge Fund decided would become the temporary exhibition space for the museum, yes.
That's right, I voted against that. But, what I'm saying is, do they have a contract? Because I don't think it's good use of the space.
No, they don't have a contract.
Because I know somebody that was told that they couldn't go because they had to wait until their contract. And you've just said it, haven't
Well,
you?
I thought they did. I thought they had a lease.
No, they don't. So good. Okay.
So they could just be asked to go.
Yeah, or give them somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah, find somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yes.
Swap places.
Mm.
I mean, what I think is, the other thing that we don't know in this report is about costings and relative costings or comparative costings. Because if we had a visitor information centre perhaps located at the front of Guildhall with the doors and straight into the courtroom, which was open 7 days a week from say 9:30 in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, during the summer season, which perhaps could begin at Easter and end at the end of September, we need to know the costs of that. And we need to know the costs of the present offer. And we need to be able to compare them. And we also need to know the costs of employing a visitor information coordinator, which is what I think we used to have. Is that right?
Wasn't it Sandy Beach?
Well, it was Sandy Beach and then it was Jackie Linning, who were employed, I think.
Sandy Beach worked at the public conveniences at the Quay.
That's
I think
afterwards.
that
Yeah.
previously I think she worked.
Previously, she worked down here.
Yes, and Jackie Linning certainly worked in the Tourist Information Office. And I think they were both paid.
Yes, they were.
Yes.
Well,
So we need to look at a job, which and a job description, and we also need to look at the availability of volunteers. So what I think would be a good idea is if we set up a working group. This committee sets up a working group to look at these issues, to do some work on comparative costings, to make some recommendations, both on how tourist information should be delivered in this town and where it should be delivered and who by. Would you be happy if we did that, if we set up a working group, which could report to us, say, at the December meeting?
I think that would be very, very sensible thing to do.
Okay, so the proposal is that we set up a working group to look at delivery of tourist information in Sandwich. sorts of issues that should be discussed.
Mhm.
So, is anybody willing to propose that?
Yes, I will certainly propose.
Anybody
that.
willing to second it?
Mm.
Councillor Heaven, so Councillor Gray proposing, Councillor, so shall we vote on that proposal? And now I think we should discuss who should chair that working group. This is the person who will be responsible for making certain that it actually meets, that it takes evidence, that it discusses the pros and cons, and it's our responsibility to decide that. So I propose Councillor Wiles. Is that acceptable to you, Councillor Wiles?
Yeah, I would second that.
So, Councillor Wiles, shall we vote on that? So, Councillor Wiles, it's now your responsibility as chair to put together a working group, which should include a majority of councillors,
Mhm.
a maximum of 9 members, but
Sorry, Chair, they can only be from this committee.
well, they can only be from this committee. Well,
It'd be a bit of money.
okay. So, but there are 3 people absent who might be pleased to be part of it, and you can have up to 4 co-optees. So, and you can take evidence.
Are there any suggestions about co-optees? Maybe someone in this room?
Well, I think they should talk to you,
Mm.
and that's your decision.
If I could just say, I've spoken to lots of businesses and other people about the tourist information offer, and many people feel that it was a mistake to close the old office. I think given that the pavement there has been widened, the waiting room is now open, that corner is much more of a busy hub. And it
Yes,
seems to
very
me it would be more, I mean, I don't want to prejudge what the working group decides, but it seems to me it would be a more attractive office for tourists coming into the town. And certainly a number of people I've spoken to, retired people, all with an interest in the town. Many people have said to me they would be interested in working in it as a volunteer in the tourist office for a half a day a week or a half a day a month. You know, it gets them out of the house, they meet people, they help people. It's good for their own well-being as well as offering a service to visitors to this town. And coming into that building, you've then got the courtroom, which is what a fantastic introduction to Sandwich. Many people never see it.
I would actually, I would urge you not to prejudge the
No,
issue.
that's right.
That, you know, the point about the working group is to look at the costs and benefits, the pros and cons,
Yeah.
in an intensive way, and I think you should keep as open a mind as possible.
Well, I'd be willing to hear the arguments in favour of the present situation, which
Yes,
certainly Councillor Fox has made to me on another.
yes, absolutely, and you know, there's a councillor you might consider to be part of.
But I know other towns, the Broadstairs one in particular is run entirely by volunteers with a coordinator who's paid, and it works very successfully.
Yes.
So,
Could I just say one thing? Although I would like the Visitor Information Centre moved, I really think that walking around idea is really good. I think a lot of people don't even think about going into tourist information. If someone's walking around with a hat on and stopping them, it's quite good. Whose idea was that? Good, well done.
Yes, I wonder how they identify tourists.
Well, they don't. They've probably spoken to like double that number of people, but the other people were. But I'd like those though. So
Okay, shall we move on to, yeah,
Councillor Wells, can I ask you not to work on that until council have resolved this?
until,
It needs to be resolved by council. You're making a
Oh, that's true,
recommendation,
yes.
So you
Yes.
cannot start work until.
No,
until
yeah, that's
we've
true.
made it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, item 9, second homes, holiday lets and Airbnb. To discuss, consider and recommend to council a plan to explore the extent of the second home ownership within Sandwich and the impact on the environment. I put this on the agenda because I know that a lot of people are concerned about the sort of emptying out of Sandwich and the likelihood that it will become, like villages in Cornwall and the Lake District and so on have become. There may be very little that we can do about it, but there are impacts that that are already showing up for, in particular, the question of the collection of rubbish left by people who either have second homes or have rented property. And it did occur to me that one of the things we might try and do is organise a meeting with the owners, particularly of holiday lets and Airbnbs, to talk to them about the question of rubbish, because it's to the detriment of the town, which in the long run doesn't do them any good either, because they're letting properties, presumably because people find Sandwich a very desirable place to stay briefly, and if it's full of rubbish, it's not. And I think there probably are ways of finding the owners of holiday lets and Airbnbs and approaching them, though it would have to be done with some delicacy. But I don't know if there are any other issues that people want to raise that we could perhaps do something about this issue of the hollowing out of Sandwich.
I did walk around the town last night and I was talking to a local person about Airbnb rubbish being out of the bins, and she said there's a lot of flats in Sandwich that don't have gardens, so the only way they have their rubbish is it within their properties, within their flat. So a lot of these flats also put their refuse into bins.
Right.
So it's not just Airbnb. So it's
Okay.
quite a problem where you've got flats with no gardens, with no outside space.
I think the problem as well, concerning rubbish, is more to do with second homeowners, because if you walk, like for example down New Street or around the streets on a Monday morning, lots of rubbish bins and rubbish bags are out, and that's got to be people going back to wherever they live, hasn't it? Because you don't put them out until Tuesday morning, so
Yes.
it's not really Airbnbs. I would think that the landlords or whatever would come and collect the rubbish.
Yes.
I think,
Yes.
I think there are provisions nationally, certainly some local authorities like Cornwall have had the power to double council tax on properties where they're not being used. I was in St Ives a couple of weeks ago, and many of the holiday homes there are being treated, I believe, as businesses rather than domestic premises, and the owners are dealing with private refuse companies, so they don't put their bins out with the council bins, they are collected privately on the changeover day, so they leave them in the yard or the garden, and the private company comes and picks them up on that day. So there are, I think we need to investigate the various tax issues and liabilities for second homes, especially where they're not being used, because certainly my experience is I used to wander the streets of Sandwich a lot when I lived here alone, and it's noticeable that the place is a ghost town often. Many houses are just empty a lot of the time.
Yes.
And you can always tell in St Ives something like 50 or 60% of houses in the central down along area are holiday homes. And you can tell them because of the little key safe on the door. And
Yes.
if you walk around these streets here, you'll see many key safes.
Yes. The council tax, I have a second home in Scotland, and I'm aware that there are special arrangements for second home owners as far as council tax is concerned. So there must be data available, presumably in Dover District Council, about the extent of second home owners. And that might be one way, though I don't know how that would go with GDPR legislation, of finding out who they are. But I think this is an issue which will get worse. And I would like some suggestions as to what we might do about it, how this committee might set about.
I think there's degrees of problem here, because a second home where someone is coming down, 6-7 weeks a year perhaps, maybe having the odd guest there, and it's empty 40 odd weeks of the year, that's one thing. But where it's an Airbnb, where it might be occupied 40 weeks of the year, which has benefits for the town.
Yes.
But you need to distinguish between the longer term lets and the ones which are not empty so often.
Should we ask Dover District Council whether they got policy
Yes.
I think we ought to do that.
about financial, whether they charge extra?
Because Dover Council have got the right to charge holiday homes and Airbnbs as businesses and increase the, they'll pay a business rate rather than council tax.
Right.
Whether they do that, I don't think they do. But I think we should ask them whether they've got any specific policy about this or are proposing to do anything about it.
Yes.
And presumably the electoral register would give some clues, because you can't really be registered in 2 properties.
No.
Yes, you can, but you're not allowed to vote
You can, but
twice.
yes.
In fact, yes. So perhaps the chief executive could be asked to write to Dover District Council and ask if they have a policy about second homes and Airbnbs in terms of council tax policy, and also whether they have considered the question of rubbish collection, for which they are also responsible, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Dover District Council.
Yeah.
And see what response we get, if any. So that's probably as much as we can do. Okay, item 10. Sorry. Okay.
You would need to vote on that.
What, asking you to write a letter?
I would propose that you should do that, yes.
I'll second it.
Okay. Shall we vote? Then Con. Right. Item 10. Tree protection, planting and maintenance. 1, to discuss, consider and recommend to council a plan for tree planting, protection, ongoing care and maintenance, and explore the potential for volunteers. And 2, to receive and consider a tree planting proposal from the tree warden, attachment 5. I put this on the agenda because I think trees are important. I think we should have more in the town. What concerned me particularly was that I'd seen trees planted by Dover District Council, I presume, or the Environment Agency as part of the flood defence works at Gazer Sorts, and they just died. I understand that the property developers at, I think it's called Montague Place, they've planted trees and they're not being watered.
But they chopped lots down as well.
Okay, but that presumably was included in their planning permission, but they're not, those trees are not thriving. So there is a problem that trees get planted and then they don't get watered or mulched, and they don't grow to maturity. So that's the first problem, that's item 1, but we also have a proposal from the tree warden. So if we could just talk about these separately, though I think the 2 things are linked. The first one about tree protection, ongoing care and maintenance.
Chair, rather than do all this, can we just set up a working group to actually go and walk around these areas? A little working group that we can report back?
Yes.
Because I'm not, some of this, to me, Cowsley should just be an open vista, because the town wall, that's where the archers, so I'm totally against trees too close, but I think if we have a working group and walk round,
Yes.
it'd be a lot easier, rather than
Okay.
sitting here discussing it, and we get a better idea what trees.
Yes, I mean, I hear what you're saying about Cowley's Meadow, but actually I would like to find the evidence that has always been an open space.
Yeah, it has.
Because I understood the archers used the butts.
No, but when the French attacked, that's where they shot the French, wasn't it? That's where they practiced.
Well, I'd like
It's called the killing ground.
But anyway, and we do have a proposal for some tree planting at Cowley's Meadow from the tree warden. And I've had a long discussion with her about them and those proposals, and we put them in a sort of order of priority. But I would think that a walk round the town, which would do us all a lot of good.
Yeah.
So the proposal, your proposal is that we, as a committee, we take a walk, we look at the trees that have died, that have been planted and died, or are not going to happen, and the proposals from the tree
And the
warden.
species of tree that's being proposed and things like that, can't we?
Yes.
We can discuss all that as we walk around.
Yes.
Because it's very difficult to see.
Councillor Evans. Yeah.
I think that the proposal about trees on Cowley's Meadow can be arranged to meet Councillor Franklin's concerns, because in fact the proposal to extend the existing copse that separates Cowley's from the donkey paddock doesn't actually encroach much onto the open space of Cowley's Meadow. There's an existing semi-hedgerow and row of trees alongside the railway line, which admittedly didn't exist in the Middle Ages, so in effect we're not messing up the open area. There's a proposal for a new hedgerow along the new fence backing onto Waits's garage, which would probably enhance the appearance. I would say that Councillor Franklin's concerns about the historical open nature of that area have definitely been put forward by me, for example, when discussing tree planting. So the only real element of that plan that might cut across your concerns is the idea of planting a few trees along the water.
Well, I mean, I lived this all my life practically. Cowsley's was completely open. The Rotary put that copse there. There wasn't a copse there. Now you're talking about, and it used to be clean. Now it's just bramble patch. I know the environmentalists would like it. Now you're talking about increasing the copse, aren't you?
Can we come
So I
back?
think if we go and discuss it on site, we're not easier than
Okay. So the proposal from Councillor Franklin is that as a committee, we arrange a time when we all take a walk round all these sites, including the trees that are dying, and we come back to this committee in November to talk it through.
We might have some new sites, might we, as well?
Might have some.
We might have some other sites.
Yes, we might well. So is that seconded? Okay, should we vote on it? Then.
Could I just ask a question? The thing that worries me is that all the water, and it's fine when it's near people's houses, they can water them. How do you get all that water there?
Yes, that is another issue.
Man with a four-wheel drive.
Oh, you
Yeah.
just take it back.
The Bowser.
Mm.
I mean, the tree warden, interestingly, has got some estimates for watering. And there are companies that do that. So again, there would be a cost, almost certainly, unless we can organise volunteers to do it.
Most of the trees proposed would be only whip sizes, and you don't need to mulch or water them because they're so small. as long as you've planted them
But there were
in a
two,
wet season.
it could have been fairly big trees or whips.
Yes,
And if they're fairly big trees, we do need to water them.
we will talk about that when we come back, when
After
we
the
revisit
wedding.
in November. But again, the tree warden's advice to me in private conversation was fairly clear about how to deal with that issue.
Good.
Chair, sorry, can I just advise you all that the item 5, potential for planting 1 to 2 specimen trees at the Bulwark, is Dover District Council land,
Right,
not Town Council land.
okay. And there's also a question somebody has raised, and I can't remember who, about planting a Queen Elizabeth tree.
Yes.
And that might be one of those trees at the Bulwark, but I can't think that Dover District Council would object to new trees. But anyway, that's something to consider at our next meeting. Item 11, Highway Improvement Plan, to receive and note a report from the Chief Executive offering an update in relation to the progress made. And I wonder, Chief Executive, if you would just talk to us about this. Or whether councillors have got any questions to ask, but perhaps you could just tell us what you think is important.
Since 2018, Sandwich Town Council have finally got double yellow lines. That kind of offers you an insight as to how long it's taken.
When will we re-look at this? Because I think 3 or 4 times now I've asked about Woodnesborough Road, because people have complained to me about the speeding and the cats being killed right from the town, and I don't understand why parts of the town are 20 and that isn't, in the residential bit obviously. It's not on here, but...
So this is only originally there was something like 83 items of issue within the town that were collated from residents and councillors and the town team, for example. Council sat and decided that these were the top 5 priorities that would be progressed.
Okay.
We can't move on anything. We can constantly add to the bottom of our 83 items, but until these
Can I just ask if
finalised-
Woodnesborough Road is on one of the 83 items? Because I have mentioned it several times.
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I can make a note and double check.
So the 5 items are,
Which are the 5?
yes,
Oh, the blue ones? No?
are they the blue ones or the yellow ones?
So these are 5. In order to progress more items more quickly, things like double yellow lines were put as 1 item.
Oh, brilliant, okay.
So whilst there appears to be more than 5 items, if it was double yellow lines, that KCC considered it as one of our priorities.
So where are they mentioned?
So they are mentioned on page 2 of the report
Oh, right. In yellow.
in yellow.
And those are in progress.
They are now complete.
They're completed.
Yes.
Right. And the blue ones,
The blue ones are either awaiting KCC to come back to us, or once we have finalised the double yellow lines, we can then go back to KCC and progress other items on this list.
Right.
Because double yellow lines were considered the highest priority, and until we knew how much they were going to cost, we couldn't put anything else into effect.
So did we pay for them?
Yes.
Oh, I thought roads were KCC.
Roads are KCC, but a highway improvement plan falls under the parish council.
Surely these are all safety.
Not necessarily, no.
Oh, well, Woodensborough Road is safety. It'll be a child or something next. So if we could just put that forward. In fact, actually, most of these are safety. The double yellow lines and everything is because people were parking too close to the edge of the roads.
So we submit our issues to KCC, and they advise if they are feasible, viable, how much it's going to cost us, etc.
But they don't pay for them. even though they're responsible for it. That's ridiculous.
What I think we should do is, when that we should come back to this, and that there will be other issues that this committee will want to raise as part of a highway improvement
So when
plan.
when these items are finally completed, and like I say, Double Yellow Lines has taken since 2018, so please don't hold your breath. When these are completed, we will then be able to pick out another 5 from the 83, and possibly more, because we're adding on to the 83 all the time. There will be another 5 priorities that will be put forward to ACC that will be progressed subject to what we can afford to do at the time.
So what is the timeline for bringing, I mean, this committee needs to look at all 83 of those proposals and pick the priorities for the next 5, is that?
Yes,
Is that what
we
you're saying?
can't pick the next 5 until these are complete.
No, but you're saying that they are complete.
No, not all of them. No,
So
some of them have
four
been
of,
deferred.
4 of them are done, I believe. So can't we choose them? Oh no, all the double yellow lines are one thing.
Yes.
Can we say that we will keep this under review?
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Wiles?
I just wanted to comment on one of these items,
Right,
if that's possible.
yes, do.
Well, the toll bridge, so they're saying no allowance for a pedestrian crossing. If you're crossing from the quay to the toll bridge restaurant,
Yeah.
it's dangerous.
It is,
You have to take your life in your hands sometimes.
yes you do.
And there's, and if you spend any time up the high street, as I have done, you will realise that a lot of cars are rat running through the town. They're
Yeah.
coming over the toll bridge, up the high street and out, and they're not using the bypass.
No.
So this kind of KCC are not in support, it's not viable. I mean, it seems to me it's a very narrow view of the thing. They need to take a more comprehensive view of traffic management in the town as a whole, and to try and discourage people using the town as a cut through.
Yes.
And that would make it more safe, rather than just saying, oh, it's not viable because there's a 3-way traffic light on
Yes.
the toll bridge. So
I
I think
think-
this is a disappointing
Yes.
commentary in my view.
I think the whole area of traffic management is obviously something that this committee should look at. And it would include pedestrianisation possibly. And we should think about putting it on the next agenda. And then perhaps this data on the highway improvement plan could be attached to the agenda for the next month's meeting.
Sorry, what do you mean by this data?
Well, this chart.
Yeah.
And an explanation as to why some of it's in yellow and some of it's in blue and so on. And maybe a list of the other 83 items that have been identified as possible.
Yes, but we won't be able
Changes.
to make any changes,
No,
unfortunately.
no. But that's all important information which we need to have. And we'll put traffic management on the next agenda. Is that I think that's as far as we can go, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I agree with it,
Okay. Item 12, Bowling Street Light. To receive and consider a report from the Chief Executive in relation to street lighting on Bowling Street. And this is the fact, and we've got some helpful photos, that there's a light in Bowling Street which looks out of place and is totally out of character with Bowling Street and the look of Bowling Street. Of course, Bowling Street has some of the most important houses in Sandwich. But it seems to be the case, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the current Bowling Street light and the way it looks, which is not good, and it's not a heritage style, is very similar to the previous Bowling Street light before it was upgraded. Is that right?
It's just got a blue knob on the top. That's all. Obviously, they were both the wrong light, but
And what we're being asked is whether we should, as a committee, should perhaps recommend to the council that the council spend some money and buy a heritage light to replace this light. Is that right?
Yeah, but I think that's awful. There's so many other things that are worse than bowling streets, aren't there?
I should be a bit careful. I mean,
Chair, if I may.
yes.
We have Councillor Carter, who has been passionately campaigning for this for years. With
Sorry,
us.
Councillor Carter.
And we have a resident of Bowling Street
Yeah,
who has
that's
been passionately campaigning about this issue for years.
I don't understand why, is it Kent or Dover district that did the lighting?
Kent.
I don't understand why they've done all the other lights on the street, and it just seems ridiculous.
I can't see where they get that cost from. Electric's already there. What cost £10,000?
That was October of last year, Councillor.
Yeah, but I mean, quick, how much does a lantern cost? And take one down and put it up. You only got to have a cherry picker, isn't it? Couple of hours work and it's done, isn't it?
And you can get these kind of lamps, maybe not as perfect as those, but a lot less.
I think they just bump the price up. They don't want it done. I reckon you could do it for £1,000.
Well, they seem to be suggesting that the Residents Association of Bowling Street, and I think there's a member, or perhaps the chair here, should find the money. Is that right? To buy a new lantern.
We're actually, I believe I'm correct in saying we're actually talking about two in the street. There are two lights that aren't heritage in the street, am I right?
Oh,
Yes,
So two.
yes. So there are two, so you're talking, as of October last year, you're talking circa £20,000.
£10,000 each.
Yes.
That's absurd.
I bet that's for Kent County Council to get the lights and to do it.
It is, but I also believe that if Sandwich Town Council or the residents of Bowling Street were to effect something themselves by taking one light down and putting another one up, I believe Kent County Council would then turn around and say that they're no longer responsible for that street light. So it's not remotely straightforward, I'm afraid.
I can't understand how this very modern looking light was put up in the first place. I mean,
They didn't bother years ago, did they?
What's the blue thing on
You
top?
didn't have street lights. You didn't have street lights on the corners. You didn't have them down the roads.
For want of a better description, obviously there is one heritage style lantern on the street,
Yeah.
and then there are two other ordinary style
Yeah.
street lights, both of which were upgraded to look exactly the same but have LED light bulbs in them. Would that be a correct summary? So KCC don't have to change the light bulbs for 7 years, because that's effectively what an LED light bulb is.
Yeah,
I'm probably
so it's better for the
making this a little
environment,
bit simplistic, but
I'm sure you could get some kind of environmental friendly lamp that goes inside the old fashioned lamps
Yes.
as well.
It's a new lantern, doesn't it? That's what it really wants. Isn't it? What's a new
Yeah.
lantern?
but they're saying that costs,
Well, now it's
a
ridiculous.
heritage replacement would be about £10,000.
Yeah, ridiculous, isn't it?
I find that very difficult to believe, frankly.
I think the key paragraph here is no one seems able to advise why it was installed. It was not a heritage lamp. Lights of similar design have been subsequently replaced with heritage lights at no cost to residents in Gilcount Lane, Vicarage Lane,
Yeah.
Church Street, St Mary's, Bell Street, Strand Street. So if it's been done elsewhere, why
I
can't
know,
it be
it
done
really
here?
seems to
So I think
be
it's a bit of a
unreasonable.
slippery slope to expect residents
Yeah.
to start.
Yes.
Could we go to council and ask them, recommend to them that we lobby Kent County Council?
Yes.
It's their responsibility, I don't. And it's a conservation area, so it should be in
Can we write a strong letter to KCC asking them to
very strong.
preserve the heritage of the town
Yeah.
Yes.
and to replace ugly blue capped lights which
But
have no
Are
place?
these the only two funny lights in the conservation area?
I'm sure there are others.
so as far as I know, and again, correct me if I'm incorrect, this has been going on since 2015?
7 years.
So 2015.
It was prior to the, sorry, Madam Chairman, may I?
Yeah,
say
do.
something? I have been campaigning for this, and I started before Kent County Council replaced all the lights. And I was told what a wonderful idea, because they were going to create everything throughout Kent. It's going to be millions of pounds. And it was never replaced. Nobody's ever been able to advise me as to why such a light was erected in a conservation area in the first place, when the whole of the centre of the town is under conservation area. And as far as I'm aware, residents in many other streets, like Upper Strand Street, have had
Upper
2
Strand
lights
Street, I
replaced.
live opposite one.
Yes,
Beautiful.
exactly, and they were all replaced, and it was just maybe it's me. I can't imagine why. I did have an altercation with Kent County Council about 20 years ago, so more than I know on the rest of things.
Targeted you.
But really, I don't see why the residents of our street should have to pay for a lamp. And the residents of any other street don't have to. And if you walk the streets, and all the streets around them have got heritage lamps.
I think we've opened it to the floor, as it were. So, Councillor Carter, would you like to?
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah. First of all, the little blue thing is a light sensor to tell it when to turn on and off. What I was going to say, I attend the Joint Transport Board up at Dover, and they have a listing of all the light works that are done on the Sandwich bypass and everywhere else, and it details the replacement, and it's been going on for months, if not years, about replacing the heritage lighting in Sandwich. And each time I go quarterly meeting, it lists the streets where they've replaced the lighting with heritage lighting in Sandwich Town. And of course, each time I look for Bowling Street, and of course it's not on there, but the lighting, other lighting in Sandwich is being replaced by heritage lighting.
It is being replaced.
It is everywhere else, yeah.
Yes.
So I think we should write a very strong letter. Have we done that before?
We have, and we've had a response back from Councillor Paul Carter of Kent County Council.
Yes,
Sorry.
yeah.
Town Council, saying pretty much tough luck, no way.
But do you think they're making an example, maybe, because you tried too hard or something? I don't know. I can't understand why they would change.
I'm just interested.
Other ones.
I'm just interested in the heritage of the town. That's
No,
all.
I agree.
I'm not trying too hard.
No,
I
but
think it's an eyesore.
why are they changing other ones but not changing Bowling Street?
I have no idea.
There is no technical.
Politics are beyond me, really, I think.
They haven't given a
I
technical
understand.
reason that it's just impossible to put a heritage style lamp.
No.
No.
I mean, this is the equivalent of someone putting plastic windows into
Yes, it should
Yeah.
be.
It is.
Mm.
be down on.
Particularly because it's so
Some of it.
unfair. I mean, it's, every other street in the centre of Sandwich has got these beautiful lamps.
Mhm.
I think KCC say it's DDC and DDC say it's KCC. This is the case in so many things, really. And with the Delft Stream, things like that that you're speaking about tonight, have all sorts of agencies been involved in that with 14 years.
Yeah.
And I think at one stage there were something like 7 different organisations, for the want of a better word. None of them ever agree with what the others want to do, so nothing happens. Basically. It's a very good excuse, he said cynically. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
No. Well, I think there's a proposal that we write a strong letter. I mean, the leader of KCC is now somebody different and may take a different view. And we write both KCC and DDC, explaining that we really, really do not understand this, that it seems totally unjustifiable and unjust.
Mm.
Particularly given that
Other people's are being replaced.
there are beautiful lanterns all over the rest of the centre of Sandwich. It's ridiculous. Well, so is that, so you will do that, will you, Amanda? Do you want a proposal?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, you've all heard what I proposed.
Mhm.
So Jeff is proposing it, Colin is seconding it. We are all voting.
Mhm.
For John's one
And
of
then Con.
But when they write back and
We
say
get a guest
it's
right then.
nothing to do with us, Then what will it be?
Well, it will be something to do with somebody.
Well, it's something different.
Sorry, Chair, the response we receive will come back to this committee.
Okay,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
We can all go and sit down in Bowling Street or something.
So,
We can finish walking round all the tree signs. Okay, item 13, update from District Councillor on matters directly related to the Heritage and Townscape Committee. Well, the District Councillor, Councillor Brenda, is not here. And the date and time of the next meeting is Wednesday the 16th of November at 6:30 p.m. And thank you everybody for your attendance. And we finished
Thank you.
5 minutes
Thank you,
beyond
Madam
what we
Chair.
do.
thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.